There was only one bag of O-negative blood left in the hospital, and my 3 sisters were frantic. They screamed, "Give the blood to Caleb. We choose Caleb. Ethan, you'll have to pull through on your own." But Caleb only had a minor scrape. In my past life, I was the true heir to a billionaire's fortune, yet I burned to death in my own villa on my birthday. My 3 sisters risked their lives rushing into the inferno, but only to save the imposter, Caleb, who was still asleep. They had completely forgotten about me, locked in the maid's room. The searing agony of being consumed by flames, of every inch of my skin being scorched, is something I can never forget. Perhaps even fate couldn't bear to watch, so it gave me a second chance. But this time I was just tired. The family I had once yearned for had brought me nothing but endless pain. So why, in this life, were they filled with regret? Before I could process it all, a heavy pounding echoed from my door. My second sister, Hannah, was shouting from the other side, "Ethan, have you grown a backbone? Open this door right now. If I had known you were such an ill-mannered brat, we never should have taken you in." Before she could finish, I swung the worn-out door open. Hannah was about to speak, but she froze when she saw me raise the wooden puppet with the broken arm and smash it violently onto the floor. "I'm sorry, I was wrong," I said flatly. "I shouldn't have competed with Caleb for your affection. In my past life, this puppet was the reason I had gotten so angry, even getting into a huge fight with Caleb. It was a gift from Hannah when I first returned to the Harrison family, and I treasured it, keeping it by my bedside. But Caleb, knowing full well how much it meant to me, had deliberately tried to take it and broke its arm. In that moment, the smirk in Caleb's eyes was a clear warning. Don't even think about wanting things that don't belong to you. But now I couldn't care less. Hearing the crash, the others downstairs rushed up to see what was happening. My father, James Harrison, frowned slightly at the sight of the shattered puppet on the floor. As for the imposter, Caleb, his eyes immediately welled up with tears. "I'm so sorry, Ethan. It's all my fault. You can hit me or yell at me, but please don't take your anger out on Hannah. She was only trying to help by calling you for dinner." Before, those words would have sent me into a rage. But now that I was indifferent, the whole scene just seemed ridiculous. "Enough. You're a grown man, always crying at the drop of a hat. Isn't it disgusting?" I leaned casually against the doorframe, watching Caleb's performance with utter disinterest. Caleb was stunned. He never expected me to say that. "And another thing," I added, "calling me down for dinner? Have you ever once waited for me? It's laughable. They never called me when dinner was ready. Whether I was late or early, my father would berate me. Being late meant I was inconsiderate, and being early meant I was greedy. The double standard was infuriating. Ethan, you're getting more disrespectful by the day. Your brother was just trying to help." My mother, Eleanor, finally stepped forward. I was her biological son, yet her treatment of me compared to Caleb was night and day. I was long accustomed to this blatant favoritism. I gave a weary wave of my hand. "Whatever you say." With that, I shut the door, leaving them all outside. My father's anger finally boiled over. "Is this a rebellion? Fine. Then you won't eat today." He then led the others downstairs, leaving only Hannah standing there, stunned. Hannah stared blankly at the puppet fragments on the floor, finally remembering that she had given it to me herself. I used to treat that puppet like my most precious possession, so why would I smash it today? She felt that I had changed, that I was different from before. In the past, whenever she got angry, I would apologize meekly like a kitten. I didn't care what was happening outside my door anymore. I just collapsed onto my bed and fell asleep. I was just so tired. The next morning, I washed up quickly and left the house. Since no one cared about my presence anyway, it was better to leave early and stay out of their way. I didn't expect to run into my eldest sister, Victoria, drinking coffee in the foyer. The Harrison family's corporation was thriving entirely thanks to her management. I had no intention of speaking to her, but as I opened the front door, her cold voice questioned me from behind. "Where are you going?" "To school." I walked out of the Harrison villa without giving her a chance to respond. Victoria furrowed her brow, confused by my behavior. In the past, I would always run up and greet her sweetly, though she never acknowledged me. In her eyes, I had only returned to the family for their money and had even stolen her jewelry once. But today I was completely different. The truth was, everyone in the Harrison family had a personal driver, except for me. I never asked for one because I didn't want them to think I was greedy for luxuries, but it never changed their opinion of me anyway. Walking down the street, I felt the breeze on my skin for what felt like the first time in ages, a real confirmation that I was alive. Turned out that if you don't care, you can't get hurt. The family I had desperately craved was probably just a joke to them. From now on, I would no longer yearn for it. Arriving at school, I sat at my desk and opened my textbook. With college entrance exams approaching, I had wasted my talent in my previous life by focusing all my energy on my so-called family, causing my top-tier grades to plummet. This life, I would study hard and catch up on everything I had missed. Back at the Harrison house, my father stared silently at the dining table, like a volcano about to erupt. Where is Ethan? Is he still sleeping? Look at the time. Are we all supposed to wait for him? Caleb spoke up softly from the side. Ethan might still be angry with Hannah. Maybe I should go up and apologize to him. He made a move to stand up but was pulled back down by Hannah. He's still angry? What right does he have to be angry? It was just a stupid puppet. I'll buy him a new one when I get back. Big deal. Hannah was about to say more when Victoria, who had been silent, spoke up. He's already gone. Her words silenced the table for a moment. After a while, my father slowly asked, "Gone? This early? Where did he go?" "Mr. Peterson, who is the driver assigned to Ethan?" The gray-haired butler, Mr. Peterson, quickly stepped forward. "Sir, Master Ethan has always walked to school on his own." Mr. Peterson himself didn't quite understand why Ethan, a Harrison, had to walk to school by himself. My father slammed his hand on the table. Who told him to walk? Or does he think the Harrisons can't afford a single driver? "Sir, it was you who said that since the young master had just returned, he shouldn't be too conspicuous, which is why a driver wasn't arranged," Mr. Peterson said quietly. My father fell silent. He had initially thought that since I had just been brought back from the outside, I would surely have bad habits. He was afraid I would do something to embarrass the family, so he had held off on arranging a car for me. He hadn't realized a whole year had passed. James rubbed his temples. Assign someone to drive Ethan. Why didn't he say anything himself? Walking every day. What kind of image does that project? It was clearly his own oversight, yet he was still shifting the blame onto me. "Yes, sir," Mr. Peterson replied, turning to find a suitable person. My mother, Eleanor, also shot my father a resentful look, as if blaming him for not noticing sooner. This didn't mean she cared for me. She was merely ashamed of her own failure as a mother. Sure enough, when school let out that evening, a luxury car pulled up in front of me. "Young master, please get in." A young man in a suit quickly got out and opened the door for me. Sitting in the back seat was none other than my second sister, Hannah. I was confused. What was going on? Seeing me hesitate, Hannah frowned and pulled me into the car. The driver, Mike, coughed awkwardly, said, "Please be safe," and started the engine. "What? Are you waiting for me to apologize to you?" Hannah asked, looking annoyed. I completely ignored her. I had no idea what she was thinking. When I didn't respond, she grew even more irritated and grabbed my wrist. Only then did she realize how frighteningly thin my wrist was. She finally saw how gaunt and frail I looked. "Have you always been this skinny?" "Yes. Before being found by the Harrisons, I was homeless. Going hungry was a regular occurrence. It was a miracle I even survived. After coming to the Harrison home, I often missed meals because everyone ignored me. Even when I did make it, I'd be scolded for some reason or another halfway through, losing my appetite. As a prominent family, the Harrisons had strict rules. No eating was allowed after mealtimes. As for snacks, I stopped touching them after being scolded once. I didn't want my family to hate me, so I was always obedient. If it weren't for Mrs. Gable, the maid in the next room, secretly saving food for me, I'd probably be even thinner. I pulled my hand back. "I should thank your family for giving me a place to stay. Having a maid's room is better than being on the streets." "What do you mean by that? What's this your family nonsense?" The flicker of guilt Hannah had just felt was instantly replaced by anger. "Are you not a Harrison? If you hadn't stolen things, deliberately pushed Caleb down, and hung out with shady people, do you think we would dislike you so much?" I was speechless. I turned to look out the window, ignoring her completely. Back at the Harrison villa, the sight of food on the table made me dizzy with hunger. I hadn't eaten in over 24 hours. "So you finally decided to come back?" my father roared, slamming his hand on the table. In the past, I would have lowered my head, trembling, waiting for his scolding, ultimately unable to eat and retreating to the maid's room to reflect. But this time, I sat down directly and placed a document in front of my father. When my father saw the contents of the document, he erupted like a volcano and kicked me to the ground. "Are you trying to start a rebellion?" I lay on the floor, taking a long moment to recover, a trickle of blood even seeping from the corner of my mouth. My mother and Hannah were stunned by the sudden violence. Only Caleb remained seated, secretly gloating. "Damn you, Ethan," he thought. "I told you everything here would be mine. So what if you're the biological son?" Eleanor snapped out of it and rushed to hold me. "James, what are you doing?" I had already passed out. In my last moment of consciousness, I felt my life slipping away. Maybe dying like this wouldn't be so bad. My father realized he had gone too far. His usual stern demeanor was replaced with panic. I just, hurry up and call an ambulance. Victoria, who had been watching from the sidelines, could no longer stay still and pulled out her phone to dial 911. When the ambulance arrived, they quickly loaded me onto a stretcher. Eleanor sat by my side the whole time, praying I would be okay. Caleb wanted to come along, but my father stopped him. You stay here. Watching everyone scramble over me, Caleb's eyes filled with unconcealable malice. Ethan, why don't you just die? Why did you have to come back? He failed to realize that he was the one who had stolen everything that was rightfully mine. At the hospital, I was put on an oxygen mask and rushed into the emergency room. Eleanor, her face streaked with tears, pounded on my father's chest. What were you thinking, hitting a child that hard? I just lost my temper. It was because of this, James said, handing the document I had given him to the others. Written clearly on it were the words, Declaration of Severance. For a moment, everyone's eyes widened in disbelief as they stared at the paper. A long silence fell over the group. They didn't snap out of it until the doors to the operating room opened. Who is the patient's family? A doctor in a white coat asked, holding a chart. I'm his mother. Is Ethan okay? Eleanor rushed forward, grabbing the doctor's arm, her voice filled with anxiety. The doctor looked at the well-dressed group with some confusion. They were clearly wealthy, yet the patient inside was so emaciated. He's stable. He's suffering from chronic malnutrition, which has left his body extremely weak. Combined with the fall you mentioned, he just needs rest and better nutrition at home. The doctor was curious about what kind of fall could cause such a state. Was this family hiding something? Hearing that I was okay, Eleanor finally breathed a sigh of relief. Doctor, can we go in and see him now? You may, but please don't agitate the patient. Okay, thank you, doctor. Eleanor pushed open the door to my room and walked softly to my bedside. My father tried to follow, but Victoria stopped him. Dad, you should wait out here for now. Knowing he was in the wrong, my father didn't argue. He had only meant to teach me a lesson. He never imagined my body was in such a fragile state. Yet, he was still thinking that it was my fault for not living properly, for wanting to sever ties with them. Was it his fault or the family's? If it weren't for the Harrisons, I'd still be an orphan. He still hadn't realized his own mistake. If they hadn't carelessly lost me all those years ago, I never would have suffered so much on the outside, never having experienced the slightest warmth of a normal family. Eleanor looked at my pale face on the hospital bed, her eyes welling with tears. She reached out to touch my cheek, but I flinched away. Her hand hung awkwardly in the air before she slowly retracted it. Ethan, I'm so sorry. Please come home with me, okay? Hearing this, my interest was piqued, and I pushed myself up into a sitting position. Eleanor quickly supported me, as if terrified I might get hurt again. You want me to go back? Fine. A smile played on my lips. I had long given up any hope for these people. Send Caleb away and I'll come back. He stole 17 years of my life. That's not too much to ask, is it? Before, I thought it didn't matter if there was one more person in the house. Even without a blood connection, I was willing to get along with Caleb, the imposter who had taken my place. But I later realized he had no intention of getting along with me. He only wanted to drive me out and completely usurp my identity. In that case, I would grant him his wish. Ethan, don't go too far. Hannah was the first to object, glaring at me angrily. Yes, Ethan, Eleanor added, her hand trembling. Caleb has no other family, the poor thing. If you make him leave now, how will he survive? She never imagined I would make such a demand. How will he survive? He's almost an adult. Can't he manage on his own? Then how did I survive for all these years since birth? I scoffed. If an orphan like me could make it, how could Caleb, a nearly grown man, not? It's just an excuse. Ethan, don't push your luck. Victoria, who had been quiet, finally said. She did feel some guilt towards me, but she cared more for Caleb, with whom she had lived for over a decade. She might have agreed to other conditions, but not this one. I looked at the three of them and yawned. I had expected this outcome. Perhaps, initially, a tiny part of me had hoped they would agree to send Caleb away. Since you all feel that way, what can I do? Hearing me concede, Eleanor relaxed slightly. In her heart, she didn't want Caleb, the boy she had raised for over a decade, to leave. After all, those years of affection were real. Then let's go home. Before she could finish, I cut her off. Then let's sever ties. What did you say? Eleanor shuddered. Although she had seen the agreement outside, she never thought I would say it out loud. Are you threatening us? Victoria's brow furrowed. She just felt that I had changed. The old me would never have said such a thing, but she had forgotten that the old me would never have imagined they would leave me to burn to death alone in a fire. I said, "Since you're unwilling to send Caleb away, then let's sever our relationship." I enunciated each word, afraid they hadn't heard me clearly. My father, who had been waiting outside, could no longer contain himself and burst through the door. "Fine, fine. From this moment on, you are no longer a Harrison." He signed his name on the document and threw it in front of me. He believed I was just bluffing, that I wouldn't dare actually cut ties with them. After all, becoming a Harrison was a dream for many. He was sure I'd come crying back to him, begging for forgiveness. In fact, Eleanor, Victoria, and Hannah all thought the same. They assumed I was just talking. "Excellent. Then I should thank you, Mr. Harrison." Without a moment's hesitation, I picked up a doctor's pen from the bedside table and quickly signed my name. This left all of them stunned. They never imagined I would actually sign it. Even Victoria, the powerful businesswoman, stared at the pen in my hand in disbelief. Only then did she realize that I truly did not care about the Harrison family. "Insolent child, you ungrateful brat, you actually dared to sign. Very well, we're leaving." My father was trembling with rage. "I'd like to see how you, Ethan, survive without the support of the Harrisons." With that, he turned and stormed out. Eleanor rushed forward to pull him back. Although she also hadn't expected me to go through with it, I was her biological son, her own flesh and blood. Hannah was completely frozen until Victoria tugged at her sleeve, bringing her back to reality. "Ethan, don't come crying to us later," Victoria said, still convinced that I wasn't indifferent, just desperate for their attention. She believed that soon enough I would come running back, begging them to take me in just like before. "Wait," I called out as they were about to leave. Victoria smirked. She knew it. I was just putting on a show, and the moment they actually left, I couldn't handle it. This time, she wouldn't forgive me so easily. The fact that I wanted to drive Caleb out proved how vicious I was. Eleanor also breathed a sigh of relief. Good. As long as Ethan apologized, she wouldn't hold it against him. No matter what, we were still a family. But instead, I took out a debit card. "The money you gave me, I haven't spent a cent of it. It's $2,000. Plus my food and tuition expenses at your house, that's another $2,200. Let's round it up to $3,000. I then tore a blank sheet from my medical chart and wrote out an IOU. "Don't worry, you can hold on to this. Once I'm in college and can get a job, I'll pay you back." By now, my father's face had turned completely grim. He never dreamed that I was serious about cutting all ties with them. Eleanor's face was pale. She was shocked to realize that in the entire year, the money they had spent on me, including tuition, didn't even amount to $3,000. Caleb's weekly allowance alone was more than that. Seeing that none of them intended to take the IOU, I put it away. Staring up at the stark white ceiling of the hospital room, I felt a sense of relief I had never known. Maybe I had once cherished this family connection, but not anymore. When my father and the others returned to the villa, he was so angry he smashed an expensive vase from the dining table. "How dare that boy? Have we Harrisons wronged him in any way?" Eavesdropping from upstairs, Caleb was secretly delighted. It seemed Ethan had made them angry again. He brought this on himself so no one could blame me. "Mr. Peterson, take me to that boy's room and pack up all his things," my father roared. He refused to believe I could survive after leaving the Harrison family. Although Mr. Peterson felt a pang of sympathy, he could only sigh internally. "Forget it, I'll go with you," Hannah said. "That kid has sticky fingers. He stole Victoria's necklace before. Who knows what else he's hidden." But when they saw my room, they were dumbfounded. There was a simple, small bed, a desk with a few trinkets, and a tiny wardrobe holding a pitifully small number of clothes. Other than that, there was nothing. Eleanor was too shocked to speak, covering her mouth as tears streamed down her face. As a mother, she hadn't set foot in her own son's room for nearly a year. Wasn't that the biggest joke of all? Biased people never see their own bias, because their hearts are already tilted. Victoria stared blankly at the items on the desk. The potted plant she had given me, a photo frame from her youngest sister. The plant was lush and green, clear evidence that I had taken great care of it. Suddenly, Victoria turned to the dazed Hannah. "Hannah, that puppet of Ethan's." "Yes, I gave it to him." Hannah remembered how she had scolded me and felt a sudden pang of regret. Had those things really been so important to him? Then why did he smash it? "Sir, should I continue packing?" Mr. Peterson asked at the right moment, feeling sorry for me. After all this time, I had finally gotten my family's attention, but it was too late. My father was also frozen in place, utterly shocked. He had only intended to warn me that even as a Harrison, I couldn't be wasteful and extravagant. He never imagined I had been living in such hardship for the past year. James, I'm telling you, if you don't bring Ethan back, I'm done with you. Eleanor finally exploded, screaming at my father before turning to go find her son. But what was the use? Affection that comes too late is worth less than dirt. Besides, the severance agreement was already signed. By the time Eleanor rushed back to the hospital, I was long gone. They searched for me for days with no luck. Then one day, the door to my classroom opened, and the principal addressed the students. "Which one of you is Ethan? Please step outside." I quickly put down my book. Why would the principal be looking for me? These women claim to be your mother and sisters. Do you know them? The principal knew I was an orphan and had brought 2 security guards with him, worried they might be human traffickers. My classmates all looked curiously towards the door. Wow, who are they? They're so beautiful. Indeed, even with sunglasses on, their elegance was undeniable. "Ethan, where have you been these past few days?" Eleanor grabbed my hand, tears immediately falling, but I showed them no courtesy, pulling my hand away. "I don't know you. Please leave." With that, I walked back into the classroom. Seeing this, the principal blocked Eleanor, who was about to follow me in. "Since he doesn't know you, I must ask you to leave." He then motioned for the guards to escort them out. To this day, besides the Harrisons, no one knew I was the family's long-lost son. My third sister, Stella, who had been silent, took off her sunglasses. If anyone had been close, they would have recognized her as the recently famous pop star. "That Ethan, give him an inch and he takes a mile. How dare he say he doesn't know us?" "That's enough," Eleanor sighed. "Let's go back for now. We'll come see him again tomorrow." "We're coming back?" Stella asked, displeased. "If you ask me, we should just wait. Once he realizes he's wrong, he'll come back on his own." She was certain this was just a little game of hard to get I was playing. After ignoring me for a few days, I would come crawling back. Eleanor wanted to argue, but Stella pulled her away. Victoria also glanced in the direction of my classroom. She did feel guilty, but it was a fact that I had stolen her jewelry. What if this really was just a ploy for attention? It was better to wait a few days. Maybe I really would show up at their door, apologizing and begging to be let back in. "Let's go, Victoria. Today is Caleb's birthday. Did you get him a gift?" Stella urged. "Of course. He's the one who saved me from drowning all those years ago. He's my most beloved brother," Victoria replied. At that moment, the entrance to the Ritz-Carlton in Boston was bustling with people, luxury cars lining the curb. "Thank you all for gracing us with your presence at my son's coming-of-age celebration. Let the evening officially begin." As my father finished speaking, the banquet commenced. A dozen young men and women from Boston's most prominent families gathered around Caleb, presenting him with gifts. Caleb's face was beaming with joy. "Ethan actually left. Now the entire Harrison family is mine. You have only yourself to blame, Ethan. You never should have come back." Dressed in a gorgeous gown, Hannah seemed distracted. "What's wrong, Hannah?" Victoria asked. "Nothing. I was just thinking about Ethan." At her words, Victoria also fell silent. It was true. Today was my birthday as well. "Victoria, Hannah, where are my presents?" Caleb walked over and sat down beside them, eagerly awaiting his gifts. Victoria produced an elegant box from behind her back. "It's a Patek Philippe watch. Do you like it?" "I love it. Thank you, Victoria," Caleb said happily, then turned to Hannah. "Hannah, what about my gift? You didn't forget, did you?" Hannah snapped out of her daze. "Of course not. Brother, this is a Porsche from me. You're an adult now, you should have your own car." But Caleb didn't know that Hannah was hiding a small box behind her back. Inside was the very same puppet I had smashed on the floor. "I'm stepping out for a bit." Before Caleb could even thank her, Hannah grabbed the small box and hurried away. When I returned to the orphanage, I found it completely empty. What was going on? Did something happen? I anxiously opened the door, and with a loud pop, confetti rained down, settling gently on my shoulders. "Happy birthday, Ethan." A dozen kids swarmed me like they were climbing a tree. "Ethan, this is your birthday present. I drew it for you myself." A little girl named Lily handed me a drawing made of countless chaotic lines. I would call it a masterpiece of abstract art, and I accepted it with a happy heart. "Ethan, this is my spinning top, Whirlwind. You have to take good care of it. And my superhero cards." Looking at the hodgepodge of gifts before me, a spinning top, a yo-yo, superhero cards, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but I accepted each one with sincere gratitude. I knew that these seemingly worthless items were the best things these little kids had to offer. "Everyone get off. Are you trying to crush Ethan?" A girl of about 15 or 16 stepped forward. The children scattered back to their seats as if they'd seen a monster. Her name was Maya, and she handed me a jar filled with paper cranes. "This is for you." Looking at the jar full of colorful paper cranes, my heart warmed. I knew she had folded them herself, squeezing out time between her studies. "Ethan, don't get the wrong idea. I bought these. I definitely didn't fold them myself," Maya explained, flustered, patted her head. "I know, thank you." As the happy birthday song began, a tear unknowingly slipped from my eye. In my past life, I had poured all my energy into my so-called relatives, completely ignoring the people who truly loved me. It turned out that even in the darkness, there was a faint candle flame burning just for me. Just like now, this flame, though small, was mine and mine alone. All right, turn on the lights. I'll cut the cake for you all." I blew out the candles before me but didn't make a wish. It was better to believe in myself than in some fleeting hope. The cake wasn't large, so everyone only got a small piece. Seeing that I hadn't saved any for myself, Maya got annoyed, but she still aljalawai handed her piece to me. "Here, you can have this. Don't overthink it. I'm on a diet." I looked at Maya, who was even thinner than I was, and smiled, taking only a small bite. Outside the orphanage, a figure in a magnificent gown paced back and forth. Finally, as if making a decision, Hannah lifted her dress and stepped over the orphanage's worn threshold. When I saw her, I couldn't help but sigh. Hadn't I already left that house to Caleb and the rest of them? Why couldn't they just leave me alone? Did they need to see me burn to death in a fire to be satisfied? "If you have no other business, Miss Harrison, you should go back." Hannah grabbed my hand. "Come back with me. Just apologize, and they won't say anything." A wave of sadness washed over me. "Then please, Miss Harrison, tell me, why should I apologize? What did I do wrong?" Hannah stammered, unable to form a single word, as if a fishbone were caught in her throat. She knew I hadn't done anything wrong. She just assumed I was the same as before, that I should be the one to apologize regardless of who was at fault. After all, in her eyes, I was just an unruly kid from the streets. "You shouldn't have threatened us with that agreement. Ethan, why are you so insistent on driving Caleb away? On one hand, there's the brother we've loved for over a decade, and on the other, there's my biological brother. How am I supposed to choose? You're being unreasonable. Have any of you ever treated me like a real brother?" I retorted. "You made me kneel outside in a rainstorm for a whole day and night. I had a high fever, but you were all busy celebrating that imposter's birthday." I seemed to give up arguing and sighed. "Just forget it. You should go." Being foolish enough to have expectations for so-called family was a mistake I only needed to make once. But Hannah still held onto my arm tightly. "I'm sorry. I was wrong before. I shouldn't have said those things to you. This is your birthday present." She opened a small box, revealing the puppet I had smashed, which she had painstakingly glued back together. I fixed it myself. I picked it up and examined it. "Thank you." But the next second, to Hannah's utter shock, I tossed the puppet into a nearby trash can. I had personally thrown away the object I once valued more than my own life. When a devastated Hannah returned home, the rest of the family was already waiting for her in the living room. "It was your brother's coming-of-age party. Where did you go?" my father demanded angrily. Hannah finally came to her senses and looked at everyone. "I went to see Ethan," she said word by word. With a loud crash, my father smashed an expensive glass on the floor. "Who told you to go see him?" Beside them, Caleb clenched his fists so tightly his nails dug into his palms, though he felt nothing. "Ethan, why didn't you die out there? You should have died long ago." "Today is Ethan's birthday," Hannah said softly. Her words silenced the room. Even the curse on the tip of my father's tongue was swallowed back down. If the public found out that the Harrisons threw a lavish party for an imposter while casting out their biological son, the scandal would be immense. Eleanor's eyes instantly turned red. She, a mother, had forgotten her own son's birthday. "I'm going to my room," Hannah said, her expression desolate. She still couldn't believe I had thrown away the puppet she had fixed right in front of her. In the past, I would have listened to her no matter what. She had only scolded me a little. But why had she scolded me? It was because Caleb had accidentally broken the puppet's arm. But Caleb hadn't meant to. He said he was just curious and wanted to take a look. Suddenly, a thought struck Hannah. Caleb had everything he could ever want, so why was he so fixated on my puppet? The realization made her panic. How could this be? "I'm so sorry." But now it was all too late. Eleanor frantically told the driver to prepare the car. She had to find her son. "Enough. It's too late tonight. I'll go with you all tomorrow," my father said, getting up to go to his room. Stella was confused. She could clearly feel the family's prejudice against me. It seemed that no matter what I did, it was wrong. But she didn't dare say anything. Once, she had spoken up for me and had been harshly scolded for it, even though it hadn't been my fault. She understood that when everyone believes someone is wrong, then that person is wrong. Victoria opened Hannah's door and saw her sister with tears in her eyes. She sighed. "Hannah, get some sleep. We'll clear things up with Ethan tomorrow." But Hannah shook her head. "He won't forgive me." Victoria frowned. "Why should he have to forgive us? He stole my jewelry and targeted Caleb. Aren't those facts?" The next day, I had an idea to make my own money, setting up a street stall. But I needed $400 for startup capital, money I'd have to earn slowly through part-time jobs. Just then, a convoy of luxury cars pulled up and the Harrisons got out. They rushed out of the cars and ran towards me. "Is something wrong, Mrs. Harrison? Do you need something from me?" I just wanted to get rid of them quickly. My words struck Eleanor's heart like a dagger. She never imagined I wouldn't even call her Mom anymore. Caleb's eyes reddened as he reached for me, but I shoved his hand away. "Damn it, you're a grown man. Stop acting pathetic all the time. It's disgusting." Caleb froze. He'd never been cursed at like that before. A flash of venom crossed his eyes. Eleanor also stared at me in disbelief. In her memory, I had never sworn at anyone. Looking at their stunned faces, I felt a sense of relief. It really did feel better to let it out. "Ethan, if you'll just come back, I'll do anything you ask, even if it means I have to leave this family." Caleb began his performance again. There he went again with that phony act. I was so sick of it. He pretended to be on my side, but he was really just reinforcing my guilt. "Caleb, your brother isn't that kind of person, right, Ethan?" Eleanor pleaded with her eyes. She believed I wouldn't actually drive Caleb away. She still thought my words at the hospital were just said in anger. "If this is all you came for, then I'm leaving." Only Hannah knew I meant every word. "Wait, I came to give you your birthday present," Eleanor finally remembered, pulling out a small, elegant box. I waved it away. "Take it back. My birthday is over." With that, I shut the gate and left. My birthday was yesterday. What was the point of a gift today? They had kicked me out just to make Caleb happy. Coming to find me now was just pathetic. "Ethan, open the door." No matter how much Eleanor called, I didn't answer. They had no choice but to leave dejectedly. On the way back, Caleb sat next to Eleanor, comforting her with his words, but a smirk played on his lips. Hannah, who had been silent, suddenly looked at Caleb seriously. "Caleb, did you break Ethan's puppet on purpose?" Her question filled the spacious car with a sudden, heavy silence. "Hannah, why would you say that?" Caleb's eyes immediately welled up with tears. Eleanor quickly came to his defense. "It was just a puppet. Caleb didn't do it on purpose. But it was the puppet I gave to Ethan. Why did you have to have that specific one?" Hannah pressed. Caleb was at a loss for words, stammering, "I was just curious. Hannah, I can pay Ethan back for it. If he'll forgive me, I'll do anything." Seeing this, Eleanor pulled Caleb into her arms to comfort him. "That's enough, Hannah." Caleb didn't mean it. Watching her mother, Hannah felt a splitting headache coming on. She said nothing more and just sat there quietly. In a place where no one could see, Caleb's hurt expression twisted into a snarl. He hated me. Hannah had always been on his side, so why was she questioning him for my sake today? A sense of crisis began to creep in. If this continued, his position might be replaced by mine. What if they really sent him away? No, Ethan had to disappear. Since the plan from a few years ago didn't kill you, let's try it again. I'd like to see how many times you can escape, Ethan. The rest of the ride was silent. Back at the Harrison villa, Hannah decided to wait a few days before finding me again to get to the bottom of everything. My father, seeing I wasn't with them, frowned, a sense of resentment building inside him. "That boy still refuses to come back? You tell him, if he doesn't come back now, he'll never set foot in this house again." Even now, he thought such threats would work on me. Hearing this, Hannah could only shake her head in resignation. Victoria crossed her arms angrily. "That's right. No matter what, Ethan did steal my jewelry and hide it under his bed." The next day at school, the class beauty, Chloe, handed me a love letter and quickly ran off. She was afraid I would think she was being forward, but she had never been in a relationship, let alone written a love letter to a boy. But she knew that if she didn't act now, she might never get the chance to say it. I probably didn't even remember what happened back then. If it weren't for me, she would have been trafficked to some remote area and forced to marry some old man. When I reappeared in her life, her heart nearly leaped out of her chest. But she was afraid to say anything because she didn't have much time left. As someone with a congenital heart defect, Chloe had known since childhood that her life could end at any moment. That's why she never got too close to anyone, afraid her death would bring pain to those she cared about. But all those years ago, when my skinny frame stood in front of her, it felt like a protective wall, giving her a sense of security she had never felt before. When I showed up again, she couldn't hold back any longer. She knew it was selfish, but after handing me the letter, she was filled with regret. But selfishness is human nature. There's nothing wrong with pursuing what you want. Chloe's heart was in her throat all the way until school let out. She kept thinking, what if I rejected her? When I got up from my seat, she immediately stood up and followed me quietly. Ethan, I like you. I'm sorry. I'm not looking for a relationship right now. I didn't want to give her any false hope. I knew she was a good girl, and that's precisely why I couldn't hurt her. Ethan, do you remember me? You saved me 5 years ago. You're finally clicked. She was the girl who had almost been kidnapped by traffickers. Yes, you do remember me, right? Chloe's voice trembled. Ethan, you'll say yes, won't you? Suddenly, Chloe started gasping for air, fumbling in her pocket for something. I quickly found her medication, put it in her mouth, and then helped her to the nurse's office as she started to recover. After hearing the story, the school nurse was at a loss for words. He couldn't understand why I would turn down such a beautiful girl. But he didn't know that ever since I burned to death, I seemed to have lost the capacity for love, afraid to trust anyone's affection for me again. It was a fear of love itself. Suddenly, Chloe seemed to make up her mind. If she was going to be selfish, she might as well go all the way. Dr. Reed, could you ask Ethan to come back? When I returned, a blush colored Chloe's pale cheeks. Ethan, I actually have a congenital heart defect. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have hidden it from you. A congenital heart defect? My frown deepened. I might not have much time left, Chloe said softly. I had surgery before, but it didn't do much. The doctor said I might not live to see 20, that I could die at any time. Then she looked at me and said the hardest words she had ever spoken. Ethan, how about 1 month? Just for 1 month, for the sake of someone who doesn't have long to live. I'm begging you. As she finished, tears streamed down her face, and she couldn't bring herself to look at me. She felt like a selfish, shameless person, using her illness to emotionally blackmail me. Okay, I said, looking at her on the infirmary bed. I finally nodded. I understood that feeling of desperately wanting to be loved, and the pain of yearning for something just out of reach. I didn't want her to suffer from that feeling too. Maybe her feelings for me were just a passing fancy, or maybe she was confusing gratitude and dependence with love. But time would help her figure it out. Chloe quickly sat up and took my hand with her small, cold one. Ethan, do you remember? This is how you held my hand back then, and we walked for a long, long time. Honestly, you too. I'm going to tell your homeroom teacher, Dr. Reed said with a sigh, feeling like a third wheel. But he felt more sympathy for Chloe than anything. It was a shame he wasn't a specialist in her condition. Maybe he could ask his mentor. He didn't know that Chloe's family had already taken her to see top doctors, and the conclusion was that even a heart transplant would be unlikely to cure her. On the way home, Chloe asked cautiously, Ethan, can I walk home with you every day? Of course, I said, smiling and ruffling her hair. Then, can we go on a date this weekend? Chloe didn't know where she got this boldness from, and her ears turned red. Just then, a Porsche pulled up beside us, and my third sister, Stella, appeared before us, wearing sunglasses. Ethan, get in. We need to talk. I'm busy, I said bluntly, taking Chloe's hand and walking faster. Stella was instantly annoyed. This brother of mine was getting more and more out of line. Ethan, I just want to talk to you. Are you going to ignore your own sister? Believe me, I'll tell the principal about your little romance tomorrow. I sighed. Let me walk Chloe home first. A short while later, Stella took me to a restaurant and got straight to the point, pulling a credit card out of her purse. There's $200,000 on this. I couldn't help but laugh. I never thought I'd find myself in the middle of a cheesy rich family drama. I know you've been through a lot, but this money is enough for you to have a better life. Take it and stop bothering the Harrison family. Don't even think about coming back, and don't ask for anything else. Stella's tone suddenly turned sharp. This is your only chance. Take the money and disappear from our lives. Otherwise, I will make you regret it. In her heart, I, her biological brother, was nothing compared to Caleb, the boy who had saved her life. She believed my willingness to leave the family was just a ploy to get something more. But when she looked at me again, I was calmly sipping my tea. 200,000 isn't enough for you? Fine, name your price. I'll give it to you, Stella said, laughing with rage. If it weren't for the Harrisons, you'd still be an orphan. You should be grateful we even took you back. Then make it 10 million, I said calmly. 10 million? Are you insane? Stella slammed her hand on the table, furious. I knew it. You're just after the Harrisons' money. 10 million? You've got some nerve. That's right. I'm insane. If you don't give me 10 million, I'll just keep bothering you every day, I said with a smile. Stella quickly realized I was messing with her. Fine, Ethan. You won't regret this. She was about to throw her glass of water at me, but I snatched it from her hand and splashed it right back in her face. You! She never imagined I would dare to do that. Before, this cheap brother of hers wouldn't even breathe too loudly around her, terrified of upsetting her. What about me? If you're sick, go see a doctor. Don't come to me, I said coldly, and for the record, I haven't sought any of you out. You're the ones who keep harassing me. But think whatever you want, just stop bothering me. With that, I got up and left without another glance. On my way back to the orphanage, I thought about the day's events. It was incredible. I never would have guessed that the girl I saved all those years ago was Chloe. But I think I saved someone else too. It was just so long ago that I can't quite remember. I'll just take it one step at a time. In this life, all I want is to stay far away from the Harrisons. Every time I see their faces, I'm reminded of the agony of being consumed by fire. The next day, I went to the nurse's office to help out. When I was sick before, Dr. Reed treated me for free and I felt bad, so I've been helping out ever since. Ethan, can you do me a favor? Dr. Reed asked suddenly. There's this guy, Trevor, who won't leave me alone. There's a business gala tomorrow, and I was hoping you could pretend to be my boyfriend to get him to back off for good. Sure, but I'll have to talk to Chloe first. She is my girlfriend, after all. Don't worry, I'll talk to Chloe myself and make sure she doesn't get the wrong idea. Just as I arrived at the orphanage gate, I saw a haggard-looking Hannah standing outside. What are you doing here, Miss Harrison? Ethan, can I come in for a bit? Hannah seemed anxious, as if afraid I would say no. And she was right. I refused without hesitation. If you have something to say it here. To my surprise, Hannah pulled out the puppet I had thrown away. Ethan, please come home. I'll explain everything to Mom, Dad, and Victoria. She was only now realizing how terribly she had treated me. How will you explain it? I asked, intrigued. You only severed ties because you were upset. I'm sure Mom and Dad won't. Before Hannah could finish, I cut her off. Then how will you explain me stealing Victoria's jewelry to her? Hannah was speechless. I looked her in the eye and continued. How will you explain me hanging out with shady people? Or me hiring someone to beat up Caleb? Speak up. How will you explain it? I wanted to see what she would say. They were always like this, condemning me based on a few words from Caleb. If I ever tried to explain myself, it was seen as a lack of remorse. Oh, right, that time I was burned to death. Why was I locked up again? I think it was because Caleb said I was dating some delinquent girl and got her pregnant, I sneered. That family was a joke, convicting me without knowing anything, based solely on a photo of me with that girl. I didn't even know her, let alone date her. And just like that, I died an unjust death in that fire. And you, Hannah, at that time, you didn't seem to remember me at all. Your own brother locked away. Did you? Ethan, I'm begging you. Can't you just give in a little? Hannah's eyes were bloodshot. She couldn't understand why I refused to back down. If I just gave in, I could go back to the Harrison home and not have to live in this rundown orphanage. Give in? Ha! I laughed. Hannah, haven't I given in enough? I used to value family more than my own life, and what did I get in return? Favoritism and prejudice. Your mother talks about treating us equally, but what does she do? She's so afraid her precious adopted son will feel unwanted that she leaves me at home alone while the rest of you go on vacation. What kind of damn equality is that? Hannah stared blankly at the puppet in her hand and finally turned to leave. I breathed a sigh of relief. Tomorrow was the weekend. Where should I take Chloe on a date? I had no idea what to do on a date, so I figured I'd ask Maya, who was also in high school. I had just gotten back to the orphanage and told Maya about it when she shoved me out of her room. Get out! No matter how much I knocked, she wouldn't answer. Inside, Maya curled up on her small bed, biting her lip so hard it nearly bled, but tears still streamed down her face. You promised we'd always be together. Why are you leaving me behind? You're a liar, Ethan. She had been sent to the orphanage when she was in elementary school, the same year her parents died in a car crash. Her relatives seized her family's assets and dumped her there. She was too young to understand anything, except that the people around her had changed. When her classmates found out she was an orphan, they mocked and bullied her. The girls, jealous of her looks, cut her hair with scissors. The cruelty of children can be just as bad, if not worse, than that of adults. I was the one who stood up for her, held her, and then cut the bully's hair in the same way. After that, everyone at school knew she wasn't an orphan. She had a super cool older brother. She had asked me back then if we could be together forever. When I said yes, she felt completely at ease. Half an hour later, Maya's door opened. There was a smile in her eyes. "Ethan, why don't you take me with you? I'll be your personal dating coach. How about it?" No refusing. Seeing my hesitation, she added, "Don't worry, I'll just follow behind. I won't bother you." Okay, I agreed, not wanting to upset her again, though I still planned to check with Chloe first. "You know how many people beg for my help and I ignore them," Maya said before shutting the door again. She leaned against the door, clutching the pendant around her neck. It was the only thing her mother had left her, and I had been the one to get it back after some punk stole it. "Ethan, don't leave me." A flicker of sadness crossed the young girl's eyes. The next day after school, I told Chloe that Maya wanted to come along. Chloe was very gracious about it. "That's fine, I don't mind." After quickly setting a time and place, we went our separate ways. When I got back to the orphanage, a figure suddenly rushed towards me, hand raised to strike my face. It was Victoria. "What did you do to Hannah?" she demanded, her eyes filled with resentment. Hannah had locked herself in her room since yesterday and hadn't come out for a full day and night. And since she had come to see me before that, it must have been something I did. But just as her hand was about to connect with my face, I caught her wrist and shoved her back. Caught off guard, Victoria stumbled backward, nearly tripping over a loose stone. "I can't believe you people. Are you all insane? Whatever's going on with her has nothing to do with me." I almost had to laugh at how this family loved to blame me for everything. "Who else did Hannah see last night besides you? I knew you were up to no good." Victoria seethed. She had always known I was a bad person, a thief, but she never thought I would stoop so low as to hurt her sister. "Then tell me, what exactly did I do to Hannah?" I knew I couldn't fall into the trap of trying to prove my innocence. In the past, whenever I was wrongly accused, I would desperately try to defend myself, but it was useless. They had already made up their minds. Victoria was at a loss for words because she had no idea what I had actually done. "If you can't say it, then get the hell out." I started to close the gate. Victoria quickly put her hand out to stop me. "Wait, you're coming back with me to explain yourself. If you don't, I'll make sure this orphanage gets shut down." "I mean it." Her threat made me pause. I couldn't let my anger bring harm to the orphanage. That wouldn't be right. I never thought the great businesswoman, Miss Victoria Harrison, would resort to threatening an orphanage full of children. "How impressive," I said coldly. "I didn't." Victoria realized her mistake, but the words were already out. "This is all your fault. Ethan, if you had just come home and explained, would I have had to bring the orphanage into it? It was the same as always. Everything was my fault, and she had nothing to do with it. Wasn't I obedient before? At your command, I knelt outside in the pouring rain all night. Wasn't that obedient enough, my dear sister?" Victoria grabbed my arm forcefully. "That was because you stole something. Why else would we treat you like that? We were just trying to teach you a lesson. And why were you so sure it was me who stole it? We found it under your bed. If it wasn't you, who was it?" I sneered from inside the car. "So anything that appears under my bed was automatically stolen by me?" Victoria was speechless and could only drive on in silence. I waved my hand dismissively. "Right, you probably can't remember. I don't even have a key to your room." It was only then that Victoria remembered that I didn't have a key to her room. She was the only one who did. Suddenly, she recalled Caleb asking for her key once, saying he needed to get something for their father. "No, it can't be. Caleb wouldn't." "I'll get to the bottom of this," Victoria said. "Please don't. If you find something out, you'll just come bother me again," I said, yawning with boredom. Soon, the gates of the Harrison estate came into view. Hearing that I was coming back, my father was already seated at the head of the table. He knew I would return. Life outside couldn't possibly be as comfortable as it was at home. This time, he was going to put me in my place. Even if I was his biological son, I couldn't be disrespectful and threaten him with severance. It was outrageous. "So you decided to come back?" The moment he saw me, my father slammed the table, trying to intimidate me. "Then I'm leaving," I said without hesitation, turning to walk out. If I wasn't welcome, why did they bring me back? They were insane. Eleanor quickly stood up and grabbed my arm, shooting my father a harsh glare. "Ethan, you must have suffered so much," she said, her eyes full of affection as she reached out to pat my head, but I moved away. "Not at all. I've been quite comfortable, so you don't need to worry, Mrs. Harrison." These past few days, free from the Harrisons' endless humiliation and neglect, focusing only on my studies, have been the most peaceful days of my life. At my words, my father shot up from his chair, furious. Mrs. Harrison? That's your mother. I met his gaze without flinching. Mother? A mother who spends her biological son's birthday with an adopted son, leaving her real son at home alone? A mother who goes on vacation and leaves her biological son behind again because she's afraid of upsetting the adopted one? Is that what you call a damn mother? A dead silence fell over the room. After shouting it all out, I felt much better. My father was speechless. He knew it was all true. Eleanor was also stunned. She hadn't realized that in her efforts to cater to Caleb's feelings, she had done such terrible things to me. In my eyes, she really wasn't a mother. Is that Ethan? Hannah, who had been locked in her room, heard my voice and rushed out. Her hair was a mess, and her eyes were bloodshot. It was clear the past day had been hard on her. Ethan, will you come back? I leaned against the doorframe, my face blank. It was your dear older sister who threatened me with the dozen kids at the orphanage. Otherwise, do you think I would be here? At my words, all eyes turned to Victoria. I was just so worried about Hannah. What did I do wrong? Victoria said defensively, then turned her gaze on me. If you had just agreed to come back, would I have had to say that? I laughed dismissively. So it's still my fault. Amazing. Are you sure it's not your fault? Enough of that for now, my father said, stepping in front of me. Ethan, if you want to come back to this family, you will apologize to everyone, and I will forget this ever happened. The severance agreement will be voided. Remember, this is your last chance. This was the biggest concession he was willing to make. What did you just say? I thought I had misheard. Forget it ever happened? My last chance? Should I get on my knees and thank you for allowing me back into the Harrison family? Mr. Harrison, you don't seem to understand. Your family has been harassing me for days. When did I ever say I wanted to come back? But my father just snorted confidently. Ethan, remember this. This is your last chance. After this, even if you come crying and begging, I won't let you set foot in this house again. Well, thank you so much for that, I said, turning to leave, but Hannah grabbed my arm again. Ethan, please, I'm begging you. Just apologize. Isn't it better to stay with the family? I shook her hand off coldly. Will you only be happy if I stay here and be your dog? Get off me. I'm done being the Harrison's dog. This time, I'm going to be a person. Just as I stepped outside, I ran into Caleb, who was returning with 4 or 5 friends. Caleb, who's this? One of them asked curiously. The question sent a cold sweat down Caleb's back. The Harrisons had never publicly acknowledged me, so none of these people had ever seen me. If they found out I was the real heir, what would they think of him? Just as Caleb was about to speak, I cut him off. Who am I? I'm his brother. Caleb's heart sank. To keep his identity a secret, he had always manipulated me into not telling anyone the truth, and I never had. He couldn't understand why I was revealing it now. Brother? Caleb, we've never heard you mention a brother, they said, their suspicious gazes fixed on him. Beads of sweat formed on his forehead. Just as Caleb was about to explain, I spoke again. Not by blood. I'm the housekeeper's son. Seeing how nervous Caleb was, I found it amusing. Was he that afraid of his identity being exposed? Didn't he say before that he would give it all back to me? Why was he so quiet now? Oh, I see. Caleb, how come you never told us? Caleb could only laugh awkwardly. I guess I forgot, haha. Your memory must be really bad. What did the doctor say? Is everything okay? I stepped forward and patted his shoulder. I guess living with that family for so long, it's normal for your brain to get a little fuzzy. You guys go on ahead. I need to talk to Caleb for a minute, I said to his friends. They nodded and headed towards the door. What's wrong? Afraid of being exposed. I didn't care about his feelings. In my past life, I was deceived by this very act. It wasn't until I was burning to death that I realized he was behind all the false accusations I had endured over the years. Ethan, what are you talking about? How could you think that? Caleb's eyes reddened again, as if he were about to cry. Damn it, if you try that act again, I'll tell them the truth right now. I'm not falling for it. Caleb dropped the pitiful expression. Just then, he seemed to see something, grabbed my arm, and used it to slap his own face. Ethan, if hitting me will make you forgive me, then go ahead. Seeing this performance, I knew without looking that someone was behind me. Ethan, what are you doing? Get out. Sure enough, an angry shout came from behind. Stella ran over, furious, and pulled Caleb behind her. Ethan, how dare you lay a hand on Caleb? Caleb's eyes were still red. Stella, it's not Ethan's fault. I'm the one who upset him. As long as he's willing to come back, he can hit me as much as he wants. He even managed to squeeze out a few tears, feigning to cover his reddened cheek as if to hide my crime. "Ethan, you will never come back to this family. We have no place for someone as vicious as you," Stella said hatefully. I waved my hand dismissively and walked towards them. "You two remember this. The Harrison family means nothing to me. Even if you got on your knees and begged, I wouldn't come back." With that, I raised my hand and slapped Caleb across the other cheek. The slap stunned him. He never thought I would actually hit him. "Felt good. Just wanted to make it symmetrical for you." "You're welcome." I looked at the Harrisons' shocked faces, completely unfazed. "What? Wasn't this part of your plan? After all, I'm so vicious. I'm leaving. You can go tattle all you want. It'd be best if I never set foot in your house again." With that, I left without looking back. Now, the Harrisons should finally leave me alone. Caleb's eyes, however, were like daggers dipped in poison, fixed on my retreating back. Today was the day I was supposed to pretend to be Dr. Reed's boyfriend at the gala. I never expected to see Victoria there, and that she would publicly slander me just to close a $1 million deal. At that moment, my father solemnly presented a proposal. "This proposal is perfect. Take it and meet with Evelyn Reed later. If we can secure this partnership with the Reed family, the Harrisons will be the undisputed top family in Boston. By the way, Victoria, what do you know about this Evelyn Reed? I've looked into her. She's a top graduate from Harvard Medical School and recently started working as a school nurse in Boston," Victoria replied. "A school nurse? At which school?" "The heiress of the prestigious Reed family is working as a school nurse. I believe it's Northwood High, Ethan's old school." Victoria felt a pang of guilt, remembering how she had threatened me with the orphanage. And she had never properly investigated the stolen jewelry incident before blaming me. "Maybe we should ask Ethan to come back." At this, my father slammed the table in anger. "I gave him a chance, and what did he do? I told you, unless he apologizes to everyone, he is not welcome in this house." Looking at her father, Victoria could only sigh. She knew I would never apologize. But as the head of the family, her father would never allow his authority to be challenged. Meanwhile, Dr. Reed had led Chloe and me to a quiet corner of the gala, wanting to avoid the crowds. "So, Dr. Reed, how should I act like your boyfriend later?" I asked. "I've already thought of that. Have your little girlfriend give me a piece of cake she's taken a bite of, and then I'll feed it to you. That annoying guy will definitely believe it," Dr. Reed said. At her words, Chloe's face flushed. Wasn't that an indirect kiss? Just then, Trevor walked over. "Miss Reed, what a coincidence. This must be fate." "Not a coincidence at all. And this is my boyfriend," Dr. Reed said, pulling me in front of her. "Honey, open up." She picked up the half-eaten piece of cake and brought it to my lips. It was the piece Chloe had bitten. By now, Chloe's face was beet red. Seeing this, Trevor stumbled back in disbelief. "Evelyn, you have a boyfriend? Isn't the age gap a little significant? Is that any of your business?" "I like them young," Dr. Reed said coldly. "Fine. Very fine." Trevor seethed, walking away. His vicious expression revealed his true intentions. If he couldn't touch the Reed family heiress, he could certainly deal with her boy toy. Victoria, who had just come downstairs, saw this and was speechless. Why did Ethan know Evelyn Reed? And why were they being so intimate? Had my cheap brother become someone's kept man? The thought made Victoria feel helpless. Given my attitude towards the Harrisons, securing this partnership would be nearly impossible. I took Chloe's hand, said goodbye to Dr. Reed, and prepared to leave. Seeing me about to leave, Victoria called out, "Wait, you two know each other?" Dr. Reed asked, surprised. How did Ethan know Victoria Harrison? She was Boston's most sought-after business prodigy. A high school student like Ethan shouldn't have any connection to someone of her stature. Although they shared a last name, she hadn't connected them as family. After all, Ethan had fainted from low blood sugar and malnutrition before, and she knew he lived in an orphanage. The gap between them was just too vast. "We've met a few times. We're not close," I said flatly. Those words stabbed Victoria's heart. She grabbed my hand. "Ethan, come home with me. If you just admit you were wrong, something was off." Since when was Victoria so reasonable? Suddenly, I thought of Dr. Reed standing next to me. "You can drop the act. I won't get involved in your business with Evelyn Reed." With that, I shook off her hand and left the gala. Dr. Reed looked at Victoria with amusement. "So you're Ethan's sister? I hope you don't mind me saying, Miss Reed, but my brother can be a bit immature." Victoria thought to herself that since I hadn't told Dr. Reed about the family, this was her chance. "I'd love to hear more. Please, tell me about Ethan," Dr. Reed said with a smile. At the gala, the other prominent Boston families saw the Reed family representative chatting happily with Victoria, and their hearts sank. It seemed the partnership with the Reed family was going to the Harrisons. What luck. I'm sorry, Ethan, but this is for the family, Victoria thought. Then, with a troubled expression, she looked at Dr. Reed. Miss Reed, my brother, he has sticky fingers. He even stole a necklace from me. I didn't blame him, of course. I just want him to learn to be better. A flicker of anger crossed Dr. Reed's face. She never thought Ethan was that kind of person. You really can't judge a book by its cover. It's not all his fault, but no matter what, he shouldn't have cut ties with his family, Victoria added. What? Cut ties? Dr. Reed finally understood why I was living in an orphanage, why I couldn't even afford a few $100s and had to work to pay her back. Yes, the family just forgot to assign him a driver, and Victoria was about to continue when my father, seeing her chatting animatedly with Dr. Reed from a distance, beamed with delight. With a partnership with the Reed family, the Harrisons' dominance in Boston was assured. Seizing the opportunity, Victoria handed the proposal to Dr. Reed. By the way, Miss Reed, this is the proposal from the Harrison group. Please take a look. But Dr. Reed crossed her arms and looked at her coldly. Why is the Ethan I know so different from the person you're describing? No wonder he's the way he is. Your family must have hurt him deeply. Miss Harrison, you say Ethan is a thief who stole your necklace. But he was willing to work for me for a month just to pay back a few $100s. Does that sound like someone who would steal from you? He even stood up to someone he couldn't afford to cross, just because I showed him a little kindness. Do you really think he's as terrible as you say? It's true what they say, biased people see everything through a biased lens. So, Miss Harrison, I don't think there's any need for our families to partner up. With that, Dr. Reed turned and walked away without a second thought. Victoria, her face pale, reached out. Miss Reed, is Ethan doing okay? What's the point of pretending to care now? You're the ones who hurt him, Dr. Reed said icily. The other guests at the gala watched Dr. Reed leave without taking the proposal, their faces filled with schadenfreude. My father hurried over, demanding, What happened? Why did Miss Reed leave? Victoria just rubbed her temples. I'm a little tired. I'm going home. All she wanted now was to go back and investigate what really happened all those years ago, to find out if I had actually stolen her jewelry. Meanwhile, back at the orphanage, I ran into my third sister, Stella. It turned out she had been investigating and found out that the little boy who had saved her from drowning lived somewhere in this neighborhood. Although Caleb had claimed he was the one who saved her, she later discovered that Caleb couldn't even swim. Under her questioning, Caleb finally admitted that 2 boys had saved her that day. I was going to pretend I didn't know her, but she grabbed my arm. Ethan, can you stay with me for a while? I'm afraid of the dark. Right, she was afraid of the dark. That's why her favorite way to punish me was to lock me in a dark room, saying it would teach me a lesson. Yeah, no thanks. When she wasn't looking, I pulled my arm free and ran. Stella collapsed on the ground, sobbing. I'm so scared of the dark. I'm sorry, Ethan. I finally understand how much pain you were in. I'm so sorry. Back at the Harrison villa, after some digging, Victoria finally discovered that it was Caleb who had framed me. Caleb, why did you frame Ethan? Our entire family gave you all our love. The memory of making me kneel in the rain all night, without knowing the truth, made her feel unsteady on her feet. No wonder I had become so cold towards her. Then she remembered how I used to bring her a bowl of hot soup when she pulled all-nighters, and her heart ached. Just then, Eleanor came over and shielded Caleb. Victoria, Caleb was probably just confused. Mom, how can you still be defending him at a time like this? Victoria finally realized just how deep the family's favoritism for Caleb ran, and how deep their prejudice against me was. Caleb was pitiful because he had no parents, but was Ethan, who had parents but received no love, not pitiful? Did he deserve to be an orphan for 16 years? My father rubbed his temples. Enough, let's not talk about this anymore. Just bring Ethan back. How can we do that? We need to clear this up with Ethan face to face. We can't just let it go, Victoria argued. Then what do you suggest? We just threw a coming-of-age party for Caleb. If this gets out, what will happen to the Harrison family's reputation? My father said with a frown. Victoria fell silent. He was right. The family's reputation was more important than anything. Just bring Ethan back first. We'll deal with the rest later. This was the best solution my father could come up with. Victoria nodded dejectedly and went back to her room. The next day after school, I felt the debit card in my pocket, which had $3,000 on it. I was going to the Harrisons' house to pay them back. After this, I would be completely done with them, with no debts left between us. The moment Mr. Peterson saw me, he was startled, but he quickly opened the gate. Young master, you're finally back. When my father saw me, He immediately put down his newspaper. Son, you're back. I'll go get your mother and sisters. I was stunned. Was this the same cold father I knew? But this was good. I could say what I needed to say in front of everyone, and then they would stop bothering me. Hearing I was back, Eleanor rushed downstairs, wanting to hug me, but I sidestepped her. Her eyes were red. Ethan, can I just give you a hug? That's not necessary. I'll leave after I've said what I need to say, I said coldly. In the past, I would have been overjoyed if she had wanted to hug me. But the first time I came home, she had pulled her hand back just because she was afraid Caleb would get the wrong idea. Now, I no longer had any expectations. Eleanor reached out a trembling hand. Why are you leaving? Ethan, I'm begging you, please stay. Even in the face of her pleading, I said nothing. Then I'll take that as a yes. I'll go get ready, and we'll go out for dinner tonight, Eleanor said, frantically getting up to go to her room. I watched her go and shook my head. What was the point of all this now? Hannah was at her art exhibition, but when she heard I was back, she dropped everything and rushed home. Ethan, have you finally forgiven me? Yes, I forgive you, I said dismissively. Hannah was surprised I agreed so easily and eagerly pulled out the slightly damaged puppet. Then, Ethan, will you take this back? Sure. I took it and tossed it in my bag. She didn't know that I now saw her as a stranger. What was so hard about forgiving a stranger? The puppet that had once meant the world to me was now just an ordinary object. Suddenly, there was a thud from the stairs. Caleb had fainted at the top of the landing. Caleb, seeing him collapse, Eleanor rushed out of her room. Quick, take him to the hospital. My father quickly picked Caleb up and hurried towards the door. By the time Hannah and Victoria realized what was happening, everyone was gone. Well, aren't you going to follow them? If your dearest brother dies, you'll miss your last chance to see him, I said with an indifferent wave. I had long since given up any hope for these people, and Caleb was certainly willing to go to extremes, but what was the point? He didn't want me back in the family, but I had no intention of returning anyway. I was just here to pay back the money. There was no need for such cheap tricks. Hannah and Victoria looked ashamed. Ethan, they wanted to explain, but I cut them off. You go ahead. I'll wait here at the villa, okay? I mainly wanted to say a proper goodbye to the people who had helped me. Then it's a deal. Ethan, you have to wait for us to come back, Hannah said quickly. I watched them leave and sat there for a long time. Maybe it was relief, maybe it was freedom, but most likely it was acceptance. Meanwhile, after Caleb was taken to the emergency room, Eleanor finally remembered me. I have to go back for Ethan, she said, her face pale. She had just resolved to treat us both fairly. How could she abandon her own son like that? Luckily, Victoria and Hannah arrived just in time and told her I had promised to wait. Eleanor breathed a sigh of relief. I was just so worried. When I get back, I'll make it up to Ethan. But this time, she was bound to be disappointed. Outside the maid's room at the Harrison villa, Mrs. Gable saw me and hurried over. Young master, you're back. Looking at the maid who had often secretly saved snacks for me, I felt a pang of sadness. Mrs. Gable, how have you been? The only warmth I had received in this house came from people I barely knew. They may not have had high status, but their kindness was ingrained in them. I'm doing well, young master, Mrs. Gable said with a smile. Now that you're back, will you be leaving again? Her question left us both in silence. Mrs. Gable seemed to understand. Young master, I'm just a worker. I don't know much about big ideas. But I believe that a good kid like you will be blessed by heaven. Thank you, Mrs. Gable, I said, nodding seriously. Nothing to thank me for. Here, take these. I've been saving them for you, she said, pulling a small plastic bag from her pocket filled with candies and small pastries. I didn't refuse, but my eyes welled up for a moment. Mrs. Gable, can I go see my old room? I didn't know why, but I wanted to see that small room again, the place where I had burned to death in my past life. The room still had the same simple bed, the same trinkets on the desk. The potted plant Victoria had given me was still lush and green. Someone had clearly been taking care of it. Suddenly, I saw the photo frame on the desk. It was a picture Mr. Peterson had taken with his phone when I first came back. They had planned to get a proper family portrait done at a studio, but they kept putting it off, afraid of upsetting Caleb. I gently wiped the dust off the frame and looked at the person in the photo who had once craved family so desperately. I couldn't help but smile. Things had changed. That version of me had died in the fire of my past life. I took out the photo, carefully tore my own image off the edge, and put the rest back in the frame. Without me, this family would probably be much happier, and they wouldn't bother me anymore. Then, I took out the puppet Hannah had returned to me. First, its arm had been broken by Caleb, then I had smashed it to pieces. Even though Hannah had carefully repaired it, The cracks were still visible. What was the point? I shook my head. I remembered what Hannah had said. Ethan, what's wrong with you? It's just a stupid puppet. Caleb didn't do it on purpose. Yes, maybe I had once treasured it, but now Hannah was right. It was just a broken puppet. After a moment's thought, I set it upright on the desk. I'll just leave you here. I stood up, took one last look at the room, and gently closed the door. It felt as if a faint shadow inside was smiling and waving goodbye to me. It was the scarred version of my former self. The Harrisons didn't get back from the hospital until the early hours of the morning. I had been waiting for about 2 hours. The first thing Eleanor did when she got home was try to hug me, but I moved away again. I'm sorry, Ethan. I was so worried earlier that I forgot about you. I'll go get a room ready for you right now, she said, about to head upstairs. Of course, I couldn't stay in the maid's room anymore. That's not necessary. I'm leaving soon, I said calmly. At my words, Hannah and Victoria panicked, grabbing my hands. Ethan, you said you would wait for us. Why are you leaving? I gently pulled my hands away. Yes, I said I would wait for you to come back. I never said I was staying. Eleanor looked at me with tears in her eyes. Ethan, I know you're still angry with me, but this has nothing to do with Caleb. I waved my hand. Caleb certainly played a big part in all of this. But if you had treated me fairly, would we have ended up here? Prejudice was the hunter that killed me. My father stepped forward. Ethan, I was wrong before. If you're willing to come back, I'll immediately announce to the public that you are the heir to the Harrison family. He still thought I had left because I cared about such titles. Mr. Harrison, don't you think that's something you should have done a long time ago? I retorted, but what had the Harrisons done? They had passed me off as the housekeeper's son. Was the family's reputation really that important? At this point, I wished I really were the housekeeper's son. Maybe then I wouldn't have had to endure the pain of my past life. Ethan, don't push it, my father finally roared. He had poured his entire life into the Harrison family and would not allow anyone to tarnish its reputation, not even himself. What did I do wrong? How has this family wronged you? He demanded furiously. Really? Then how did I get through the last 16 years? I didn't back down. I had given in enough before. I wasn't going to do it anymore. For 16 years, I never relied on the Harrison family. Even this past year, after you brought me back, I never relied on you once. I wasn't complaining. I just wanted them to know that few people knew I was a Harrison, so my leaving wouldn't cause them any harm. Shouldn't you be happy that I'm leaving? I said with a self-deprecating laugh. Isn't this the best outcome for everyone? What are you talking about? How could we be happy if you left? Eleanor's voice trembled. What have we done to you all these years to make you think that? If I leave, your good son and brother, Caleb, won't have to worry about being kicked out anymore, right? Caleb isn't. Eleanor tried to argue, but I cut her off. I know. Caleb is so kind. Why would he worry about something like that? Right, Mom? I said, putting extra emphasis on the word kind. Eleanor was speechless. All right, here's the $3,000 I owed you. Do you want to count it? I took the money out of my bag and placed it in front of them. They all looked at each other in silence. Ethan, where did you get this money? Victoria suddenly asked. She was afraid I was being kept by Evelyn Reed. No, I have to go talk to her and find out what's going on. Ethan is still a student. Don't worry, it's clean money, I said, turning to leave. But Hannah grabbed my arm. Her usual arrogance was gone, replaced by tears. Ethan, you said you forgave me. Please don't go. I slowly pulled my hand away. Yes, Miss Harrison, I forgave you a long time ago. So please, stop bothering me. It was only then that Hannah understood that I now saw her as a stranger and would never call her sister again. After I left, a long silence fell over the Harrison house. My father never dreamed that I truly didn't care about being the Harrison heir. Ethan will come back, won't he? Eleanor asked my father numbly. She knew I had made up my mind, but she still wanted to deceive herself. Mom, he's really gone, Victoria said before heading upstairs in a daze. This time, I would never again call her sister sweetly, never again bring her a bowl of hot soup when she worked late. Back in her room, Victoria crouched in a corner, a single tear rolling down her cheek. Why couldn't they just give Ethan justice? She didn't understand why her parents wouldn't reveal the truth about how I had been framed, all for the sake of the family's ridiculous reputation. If we had given you justice, would you have stayed? But she knew I had been hurt too deeply by the family. I'm sorry, Ethan. I'm so sorry, Victoria whispered, burying her face in her arms and crying silently. Anyone who saw her like this would be shocked. The decisive, powerful businesswoman was actually so vulnerable. Suddenly, Victoria's expression hardened. If Evelyn Reed really had her claws in me, she would fight her to the death, no matter the cost. Just a short while ago, she was slandering me to Evelyn Reed, and now she was ready to go to war for me. She didn't even know what she was thinking anymore. Meanwhile, Hannah was in a daze. How did things get like this? Why did Ethan leave without a second thought? Did they really not know? Suddenly, as if remembering something, Hannah ran like a madwoman to the maid's room where I used to stay, a sliver of hope in her heart. But the moment she pushed open the door, she saw the puppet sitting on the desk. Looking at the puppet, Hannah finally broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. Ethan, of course, I knew nothing of what was happening at the Harrison house. Walking back to the orphanage, I felt completely at ease. Finally, I was free of the Harrisons with no debts between us. The evening breeze was cool, and even in the early morning, the barbecue stalls were bustling with people. To be honest, I had always envied these people, so free and carefree, not caring what others thought. In other words, they were living for themselves. And now I was going to live for myself too. When I got back to the orphanage, a familiar figure was standing at the gate. It was Maya. I thought she would run away like before, but this time, she walked towards me and suddenly threw her arms around me. I was stunned for a moment, then smiled and patted her head. Hey, what's wrong? Why were you ignoring me before? Maya pinched my side hard. Ow, what was that for? Humph, I just felt like picking on you. Is that a problem? She had that same feisty attitude, and it felt like the old Maya was back. But the next second, she burst into tears. Ethan, you're such an idiot, a moron, a total blockhead. The young girl had poured all her adolescent feelings into me, and I had been completely oblivious. Seeing her cry, I panicked. Why are you crying? Who bullied you? Tell me, I'll go. You're the one who bullied me, Maya said, pointing at me, tears still in her eyes. Haha, how did I bully you? I rubbed my nose, trying to remember. It just was. Why are you asking so many questions? Maya couldn't exactly say that she liked me, but I had a girlfriend now. Okay, I'm sorry. Is that better, Your Highness? I quickly apologized. That's more like it. Maya finally forgave me, then suddenly turned serious. Chloe is a good girl. You better not hurt her. You hear me? With that, she let go of me and went back to her room. I watched her go and smiled. That's what they call having a sharp tongue but a soft heart. The next morning, as soon as I got to school, I was called to the principal's office. Principal, what can I do for you? I asked, confused. What? Can't I just come see how you're doing? He said, his hands behind his back, looking perfectly calm. Don't try to fool me, sir. I know you didn't just come to see me. All right, come to my office. I've already cleared it with your teacher. I wanted to ask you why your grades have been slipping lately, the principal said, changing the subject. He had seen how hard I was working, but for the past year, my grades had been declining. Although they were improving recently, I used to be in the top 10 in my year, a potential candidate for an Ivy League school. But on the last mock exam, I had dropped to the top 20, and at one point I was even ranked below 200. Haha, all right then. I had no choice but to follow him to his office. In his office, I made the principal a cup of tea. He took a sip and froze. What kind of tea is this? Just the tea from your cabinet, I said, taking a sip myself. It was actually pretty good. The principal nearly had a stroke. It was a rare, premium tea a friend from the army had given him, something he barely touched himself, and I had used a huge scoop. Forget it. Consider my premium tea a motivational gift. You better study hard and make something of yourself. You hear me? I will, I said, nodding quickly, though I was thinking, this tea is really good. I should ask him for some before I leave. The principal seemed to read my mind and thought to himself, why don't I just give you my life while I'm at it? Suddenly, the principal's words made me spit out my tea. Ethan, are you and Dr. Reed seeing each other? Sir, what did you say? I wiped the tea from my mouth, unable to believe what I had heard. Don't play dumb with me, the principal said, his face stern. What have you been doing in the nurse's office every day after school? It wasn't that he disapproved, but a relationship between a student and a school nurse was forbidden. Someone had called to report it, threatening to go to the school board if he didn't investigate. He knew Dr. Reed came from a powerful family. If this got out, I would be the one expelled, and my future would be ruined. Tell me the truth. I took a breath and explained, Sir, you've misunderstood. I've been going to the nurse's office because I fainted before and couldn't pay the medical bill, so I'm working to pay off the debt. Then what about you and Dr. Reed being seen entering and leaving the school together? And the other night, you brought her back to the school late at night. How do you explain that? The principal was still skeptical, worried we had crossed a line. Sir, you've really got it wrong. I told him everything about Dr. Reed taking me to the food stalls and the gala. Chloe was there too. Chloe? The principal glanced at me. I realized I had slipped up and quickly corrected myself. I mean, Chloe, the student. She and Dr. Reed are good friends. The principal was silent for a moment. All right, come with me. We'll go talk to Dr. Reed and clear this up face to face. Is that really necessary? I said, starting to panic, afraid Dr. Reed would get the wrong idea. What? Are you scared? The principal was worried I was lying. It's not that. I'm just worried Dr. Reed will misunderstand, I said with a sigh. But Chloe, who was outside delivering papers, heard everything. She clutched the papers tightly, her heart racing. No, it can't be. Ethan wouldn't be with Dr. Reed. When the principal and I arrived at the nurse's office, Dr. Reed was treating a student, and Chloe was trailing cautiously behind us. I'll give you some cold medicine. Make sure to stay warm and drink plenty of water, Dr. Reed said, and the student left. The principal led me inside. Dr. Reed, we've come to ask about something. He then told her about the anonymous tip regarding her and me. Dr. Reed looked baffled. Who would be so bored? Suddenly, she thought of Trevor. Who else but that petty man would do something so childish? Dr. Reed explained the whole situation to the principal, who finally relaxed. Outside, Chloe also breathed a sigh of relief, then blushed with shame for having doubted Dr. Reed. Well, we'll be going then. Sorry to have bothered you, Dr. Reed, the principal said, leading me away. But just as we left, a woman in a sharp business suit and high heels appeared at the door. It was Victoria. Dr. Reed was busy thinking of how to deal with Trevor and assumed it was another student. When she looked up, she recognized the woman who had claimed to be my sister at the gala. She did not have a good impression of Victoria. What are you doing here? Is this about the partnership? What I'm doing here? You should be asking yourself what you've done, Victoria said angrily. Dr. Reed was even more confused. What are you talking about? What did I do? What did you do to Ethan? Victoria demanded. Dr. Reed's head started to ache. Whatever is going on between Ethan and me, what does it have to do with you? I'm Ethan's sister, so of course it has to do with me, Victoria shouted. You have the nerve to call yourself his sister? Dr. Reed sneered. How did you slander him in front of me back then? To call yourself his sister now is just shameless. Dr. Reed's gaze turned sharp. What right do you have to question me? Where were you when Ethan fainted from low blood sugar? Where were you when he couldn't afford medical care? You come here to question me now? But where were you before? What did you say? Ethan fainted. Victoria panicked. She had no idea. Of course he wouldn't tell you, Dr. Reed said bluntly. In any case, you'd better stay away from Ethan. Knowing she was in the wrong, Victoria had no choice but to leave. She would wait for me after school and ask me herself. Watching her go, Dr. Reed muttered, crazy. When I went to the nurse's office to help after school, I found out Victoria had been there. Chloe stood by, her head down, still ashamed of her earlier suspicions. By the way, Dr. Reed, do you know who reported us to the principal? Dr. Reed frowned but didn't mention Trevor's name. He wasn't someone I could handle. I'm not sure yet, but don't worry, I'll take care of it. She planned to ask her sister, Isabel, for help, but just the thought of that lunatic gave her a headache. Just then, I got a call from Jenna, the owner of the ramen shop. She was stammering, her voice choked with sobs. Don't worry, take your time. Ethan, my sister is sick. I need $5,000, Jenna said, trying to hold back her tears. She knew that asking for money from someone she had just met might make her seem like a gold digger or a scammer. But she had already asked all her relatives. They knew about her gambling-addicted father and that she was just a recent college graduate, so no one was willing to lend her the money. Even online lenders had blacklisted her because of her father's debts. Since her mother's death, she and her sister had only had each other. To protect them both, she had transformed from a quiet girl into a tough woman who wasn't afraid to stand up for herself. My arrival had made her feel like things were getting better, but fate had played a cruel joke on her. Her sister had been diagnosed with leukemia. The only good news was that the hospital had found a bone marrow match and could operate at any time. The bad news was that the surgery cost $20,000. She had sold everything she owned, including their small apartment, but had only managed to raise $15,000. She had even considered selling her blood but was turned away for being unhealthy. No one would even buy her ramen shop. The local thugs all knew about her gambling father and didn't want to get involved. With nowhere else to turn, she thought of me. I know this is a lot to ask, but I have no other choice, Jenna said, biting her lips so hard she didn't notice it was bleeding. I looked at Chloe and Dr. Reed. What do you two think? I wasn't a saint. I couldn't just give away money to someone I had only known for a few days. Including the $2,000 I had already given Jenna, I had exactly $5,000 left. money I had planned to use to improve the ramen shop. Both Dr. Reed and Chloe were silent. Dr. Reed was a practical person and wasn't sure if Jenna could pay it back. Chloe, on the other hand, was thinking about her own illness. On the other end of the line, Jenna, hearing my silence, blurted out in desperation, "If you'll just lend me the money, I'll do anything." Her words shocked everyone in the room, and I frowned. "I'm sorry, miss, you've got the wrong idea," I said before hanging up. Jenna leaned against the wall and broke down, sobbing. For her sister's sake, she had been willing to sacrifice her dignity, but it still hadn't been enough. Just then, Chloe took my hand and looked at me seriously. "Lend her the money." Both Dr. Reed and I were stunned. "Chloe, you—" Dr. Reed started to object, but Chloe cut her off. "It's okay. I trust Ethan, and I don't think that's what she meant," Chloe said, shaking her head. "She understood the pain of illness, and if we could help, we should." "Chloe, are you sure?" I asked one more time. This $5,000 was originally meant for her in case of an emergency. Chloe nodded. "I'm sure." Since she agreed, I had no objections and planned to take the money to Jenna at the ramen shop later. "Oh, Chloe, you're just too sweet," Dr. Reed said, ruffling her hair. When I was done for the day and walked to the school gate, I found Victoria already waiting. The moment she saw me, she moved to block my path. My head throbbed. Why couldn't the Harrisons just leave me alone? Hadn't we already settled things? I took Chloe's hand and tried to leave, but the school gate was crowded with parents and students, making it impossible to get through. Victoria grabbed my arm, but I shook her off. "Ethan, can we please talk?" "No need. If you have something to say it here." I refused. Left with no choice, Victoria turned to Chloe. "Young lady, you must be Ethan's classmate. I'm his sister." "That's enough." I cut her off, not wanting to drag Chloe into this. "Then, Ethan, can we—" Victoria tried again. "Let's go," I said to Chloe. This was the second time she had seen me so angry, the first being when we faced the thugs with knives. Chloe looked worried. "Ethan, do you need me to?" "It's fine. You just worry about eating later," I reassured her. Seeing how close we were, Victoria had an idea. If she could get on good terms with Chloe, maybe I would forgive her. We went to a coffee shop where Victoria had already reserved a table by the window. "Ethan, you haven't eaten yet, have you? Waiter, please bring out what I ordered earlier." She was trying to keep me there with food, so I suppressed the urge to leave. "And you are?" Victoria asked Chloe. Chloe was flustered. This was the first time she had met my family. I'm Chloe." "Chloe, what a lovely name. I'm Ethan's sister, Victoria." Before Victoria could say more, I cut her off. "If you have something to say it." I didn't want Chloe involved. Victoria glanced at Chloe, then said it anyway. "Are you being kept by Evelyn Reed?" Chloe's eyes widened, and I was just as stunned. Dr. Reed had only said Victoria came to see her, not that this was the reason. "What does that have to do with you?" I asked coldly. "Ethan, you can't do this for money." "That's right, it's all for the money. I came back to the family for money. I stole your jewelry for money. Are you satisfied now?" With that, I took Chloe's hand and stood up to leave. Victoria quickly followed. "Ethan, that's not what I meant. I'm just worried you're being taken advantage of." I stopped and looked back at her. "Sister? You stopped being my sister a long time ago. Have you forgotten?" With that, I walked away and didn't look back. Victoria stood frozen, taking a long moment to recover. Hearing me say she wasn't my sister felt like a knife to the heart. She didn't even have the courage to clear my name, yet she expected me to forgive her. It was laughable. Chloe and I went to the ramen shop in the downtown night market, but we found the door open and the shop empty. "Jenna, is anyone here?" I called out, a bad feeling creeping over me. Meanwhile, in the basement of a factory on the outskirts of Boston, a large, secret gambling den was in full swing. The room was filled with the shouts of gamblers crowded around dozens of tables. "Just one more loan. I know I can win it back this time." Jenna, facing this scene for the first time, nervously clutched the knife hidden at her waist. "Hurry up, don't dawdle." The man leading her was the same thug who had caused trouble at her shop before. When they reached the back room, the thug stopped and knocked respectfully. "Come in," a gruff voice called out. Jenna walked in and saw a man looking her up and down. "You're old man Davis's daughter?" "I have nothing to do with that old gambling addict," Jenna said through gritted teeth. If it weren't for her father, her mother wouldn't have died from overwork, and their family wouldn't have been crammed into a tiny apartment. "I'm not interested. I'll take that shop of yours for $10,000. Jenna's eyes widened. A shop in that location was worth at least $60,000. She had done her research. "Do you think you can sell it to anyone else right now? Your sister is waiting for that money to save her life, isn't she?" The man knew he had her cornered. With them around, no one would dare buy her shop. 20,000. No less, Jenna said, clenching her fists. The shop was the only thing her mother had left her, and she needed the 20,000 to pay back the 1,200 I had helped her with. The man was surprised by her directness and handed her a contract. Fine. Jenna quickly signed her name. When will I get the money? But the man just smiled. Mr. Davis, you can come out now. A small, thin man in a sweaty t-shirt walked out. It was Jenna's gambling-addicted father. What are you doing here? Jenna was stunned. The thug behind her suddenly pulled out a handkerchief and pressed it over her mouth and nose. By the time Jenna realized what was happening, it was too late. She tried to reach for her knife but had no strength, watching helplessly as it fell to the floor. The handkerchief was soaked with a new type of drug that kept you conscious but paralyzed. Mr. Davis, your daughter's not bad. This is for you, the man said, tossing him a stack of cash. Her father eagerly caught the money, thanking the man profusely. For just $10,000, he had sold his own daughter. To a gambler, family was just another disposable asset. People lost in gambling can no longer be called human. Tears of regret streamed from Jenna's eyes. She shouldn't have been so desperate, shouldn't have trusted these scumbags. She struggled with all her might and managed to move slightly. She couldn't give up. That was her sister's life-saving money. The thug and the boss were amazed. This drug could knock out a heavyweight boxer with one whiff, yet this young girl was still moving. Drag her away. Let the boys have some fun first. And remember to film it, the boss ordered. The thug nodded eagerly. He had been eyeing Jenna for a while. She was feisty, but she was a knockout. Jenna felt herself being dragged away, unable to resist any longer. I'm sorry, little sister. I failed you. She knew what was coming next. No matter how strong she was still just a recent graduate. If they filmed her and used it for blackmail, she would rather die. As for her father, he took the money and went straight back to the gambling table. The boss watched him go and sneered. He knew Mr. Davis would just gamble the money away, and it would all end up back in his pocket. That's how it worked. The house always wins. The few times you win are just bait. A hand landed on Mr. Davis's shoulder. He turned to see just some kid and dismissed him. Get lost. I'll ask you one more time. Where is Jenna? I said, my fingers tightening their grip. Mr. Davis cried out in pain and dropped to the ground. The other gamblers stared, but I didn't care. I hadn't come alone. The entrance to the basement was surrounded by a fully armed SWAT team. I had come down alone so as not to alert them and to find Jenna as quickly as possible. I had found this place so fast thanks to Dr. Reed. She had contacted her sister, Isabel, who had used her special methods to get the address out of someone. Dr. Reed was on the phone with Isabel now, looking exasperated. Thanks for your help this time. Bye. She really hated contacting her crazy sister. But without Isabel's help, Jenna's life would have been in danger. On the other end of the line, Isabel's bell-like laughter rang out. Sister dear, you'll never escape from me. Her words were followed by a pained scream. Clearly, Isabel was in the middle of an interrogation. Isabel looked at the man tied to a chair, her innocent face twisted with madness. Human trafficking, illegal gambling, I don't care about any of that. She picked up a baseball bat and swung it hard at the man's leg. But you should never have laid a hand on my dear sister's interests. With another sickening thud, the man's other leg was broken. Isabel tossed the bat aside and said coldly, cut off both his legs and dump him in a mental institution. Yes, ma'am, her two bodyguards said, sweating nervously. Meanwhile, seeing that Mr. Davis wouldn't talk, I was losing my patience. Every second wasted put Jenna in more danger. Let go of me, or I'll scream for help, he shouted. I let him go, but then I saw the thug from the ramen shop. When he saw me, he knew he was in trouble and tried to shut the door to warn his boss. But I stopped him. Where is Jenna? The thug frantically tried to close the door. I don't know what you're talking about. This is no place for you, kid. Get out. Inside the room, Jenna thought she heard my voice and struggled to make a sound. But when she heard my footsteps walking away, she fell into despair. Hope had been so close, but she could only watch it disappear. We can move in, I said into the hidden microphone on my collar. Then I kicked the thug hard in the groin, and he collapsed, howling in pain. SWAT officers poured into the room, and the casino erupted into chaos. Everyone on the ground, hands where I can see them. The boss tried to escape through the back but was caught by the officers. I kicked open the door to the back room, and there was Jenna, lying on the sofa. Jenna! When she didn't respond, I picked her up and ran for the ambulance waiting outside. Once Jenna was safely in the ambulance, I finally breathed a sigh of relief. She hadn't been assaulted, it was just the effects of the drug. After everything had settled down, I took Chloe and Dr. Reed to the hospital to visit Jenna. When Jenna saw us, she tried to get up, but Chloe stopped her. You need to rest. We can talk about everything else later. Seeing Chloe's concerned face, Jenna couldn't hold back her tears any longer. I'm sorry, Chloe. What I said on the phone before, you must think I'm so shameless. Chloe gently patted her head. Of course not. I know what you've been through. She wasn't angry about what Jenna had said, and she trusted that I wasn't a creep. If I were, I would have made a move on her long ago, and she wouldn't still be wondering what a kiss felt like. The thought made Chloe's face turn red, and she quickly shook her head to clear her mind. Chloe, what's wrong? I asked, thinking she was feeling unwell. And nothing, she said shyly. Just then, a female police officer knocked on the door. Miss Davis, your father would like to see you. Mr. Davis was in police custody. He knew that if Jenna told them he had sold her, he would be facing much more than just a gambling charge. So he had to see her. After all, he was her father. If she kept quiet, he would be out soon and could go back to gambling. Jenna dragged her weak body to stand in front of her father. Mr. Davis's face lit up. Jenna, honey, I know I was wrong. You can't. Jenna slapped him across the face, her eyes filled with tears of rage. Do you have any idea that my sister has leukemia? That $10,000 was to save her life. If it weren't for you, my sister and I would never be in this situation. Let's not talk about that now, Jenna. Just go talk to the police and get me out of here. When I get out, I promise I'll change my ways, he pleaded, still delusional. Even now, that's all you can think about? Jenna sneered. I haven't even told them that you sold me to those scumbags for $10,000. At her words, both Chloe and I stared at Mr. Davis in disgust. Selling his own daughter? We never imagined he could be so depraved. Jenna, please, don't tell them, okay? Mr. Davis panicked and was about to kneel, but when no one stopped him, he stood back up. Go on, kneel. Why don't you? Jenna said, looking at him coldly. That's what you owe my mother. You can repent in prison. With that, she turned and walked away. After giving her statement and leaving the police station, Jenna bowed deeply to me. She was starting to realize that she might actually be falling for me. The image of me rescuing her was now etched in her mind. But she would never do anything to hurt Chloe. She would keep these feelings buried forever. I told Jenna not to reopen the shop right away. After everything that had happened, it could wait until after her sister's surgery. When I got back to the orphanage, I saw a figure lingering by the gate. It was Stella. Ethan, what are you doing here? She asked, looking down at me from behind her sunglasses as if I owed her money. Why can't I be here? Move, you're in my way. I felt like I had the worst luck. I'm not moving. What are you going to do about it? Stella was determined to antagonize me, probably because I had left her alone in the dark before. Suddenly, Stella noticed the orphanage nearby. You live around here? She was here looking for the boy who had saved her all those years ago. The area wasn't huge, but it wasn't small either. She had been searching for days with no leads. All she knew was that the boy had been tall and thin. After so many years, she wasn't even sure what he looked like anymore. Continuing the search felt like looking for a needle in a haystack. Yes, I live here now, I said with a wave, not at all ashamed of living in an orphanage. Stella looked at the modest houses around us in disbelief. People actually live here? For a pampered princess like her, a place like this was unimaginable. Do you remember if there was a tall, thin boy around here? He should be about my age, she asked suddenly. I was confused. Tall and thin? Why are you looking for him? Just as Stella was about to answer, her phone rang. What? You have a lead? I'm on my way. She hung up and rushed off, leaving me completely bewildered. I really didn't get it. I shook my head. The Harrisons were all so strange. After Stella was gone, another figure appeared. It was Caleb. Caleb, what are you doing here? I frowned. Wasn't he supposed to be in the hospital? Caleb walked right up to me, his eyes filled with malice. Ethan, as long as I'm around, you will never come back to the Harrison family. This was a side of him he had never shown to anyone else. Maybe this was his true face. Are you ever going to give up? I grabbed him by the collar. Why couldn't this kid just leave me alone? I had already said I wasn't coming back. Ethan, what are you doing? Let go of me. Caleb started playing the victim again. I had to laugh. Sure enough, the next second, Eleanor and my father appeared behind me. Ethan, what are you doing? Let go of your brother. Eleanor shouted. I understood then. Caleb had left the hospital and deliberately provoked me, all as part of a plan. Ethan, please let your brother go, Eleanor said, trying to intervene. Caleb was still putting on a show. Mom, just let Ethan hit me. If it will make him come home, he can hit me as much as he wants. Seeing his teary eyes, Eleanor's heart broke. Ethan, your brother just wants you to come home. Don't be so hard on him. Let's all sit down and talk. I sneered. Really? Then I guess I should thank my dear brother. With that, I slapped Caleb twice across the face, ignoring the shocked looks from the others, and leaned in close to his ear. You didn't learn your lesson last time. Don't forget it again. I shoved him aside and went back into the orphanage. I had hit him right in front of Stella before, and he was still pulling the same tricks. I wasn't going to put up with it. He could try it as many times as he wanted, and I would hit him every time. I had no intention of ever going back to that family. After being hit, Caleb's face went pale, and he fainted again. Eleanor had no choice but to take him to the hospital, forgetting all about chasing after me. When Stella arrived at the hospital, she heard my father's angry voice. No matter what, Ethan should not have hit his brother. How's Caleb? Did that brat Ethan hit him again? Stella asked. Caleb struggled to sit up. It's not Ethan's fault. I was just too eager and upset him. Seeing his pitiful act, Stella grew even angrier. I'm going to find him and make him apologize to Caleb. With that, she stormed out, ignoring Eleanor's calls. Caleb was secretly pleased. He was the one who had called Stella and told her he had a lead. He had discovered that I was the one who had actually saved her, and he couldn't let that get out, or his position in the family would be completely undermined. Before, his parents and all 3 sisters had been firmly on his side. But since I left, everything had changed. Hannah had questioned him about the puppet, and Victoria's attitude towards him had shifted. He absolutely could not let me return to the family. He had to take the initiative and crush me completely. Stella arrived at the orphanage and burst through the gate. Ethan, get out here. I knew she was here for Caleb. What did you do to Caleb? He's in the hospital right now. Stella grabbed my collar, her eyes blazing with fury. Look at you, always resorting to violence. You're an irrational brute. I suddenly found this interesting. And what was I like before? If I wasn't like this before, you must have all loved me, right? Isn't that so, my dear sister? My words left Stella speechless. She knew what my life had been like in that house. She had played a part in making me who I am today. No matter what, you shouldn't have hit Caleb. Come with me to the hospital and apologize. Stella was becoming unhinged, stubbornly sticking to her path even though she knew she was wrong. In her heart, I, her biological brother, would never compare to Caleb, the boy who had saved her. I'll go with you and apologize, but you have to swear you'll never bother me again, I said, looking at her coldly. What do you mean, bother you? Am I not concerned about you? Stella shouted. Concerned? Coming here in the middle of the night to harass me is concern? Forcing me to apologize to that little snake is concern. I shook her hand off and turned to go back inside. I hated hypocrites. She was clearly here for Caleb, but she had to pretend it was for my own good. Ethan, if you don't come with me and apologize, I will never agree to you coming back to this family, Stella yelled. I shook my head. She still thought I wanted to go back. I couldn't ask for more. With that, I shut the gate and didn't open it no matter how much she pounded on it. Stella had no choice but to leave dejectedly, cursing me for being ungrateful and waiting for the day I would come crying to her. Just then, she got a call from a private investigator. Miss Harrison, we've cross-referenced data and conducted interviews. The boy who saved you back then is still living in that same orphanage. I'm sending you the details now. Stella excitedly opened her phone, but the moment she saw the photo, she froze. The skinny boy in the picture, desperately pulling a little girl out of the water, was unmistakably Ethan, her own brother, the one she had treated with such coldness and cruelty. In an instant, her world turned upside down. All her past prejudices and the hurt she had caused me became a resounding slap across her face. She couldn't think straight anymore. There was only one thought in her mind. She had to see me immediately and demand an explanation. When Stella found me, I was in the orphanage yard, helping Maya fix a creaky old bench. The pressure of the college entrance exams was like an invisible mountain, but being with people who genuinely cared about me made even the air feel lighter. She stood there abruptly at the gate, dressed in designer clothes that were completely out of place. She looked exhausted, her eyes were bloodshot, and she had lost all the glamour of the pop star she once was. Ethan, she said, her voice hoarse as if she hadn't had water in days. I stopped what I was doing, set the hammer aside, and didn't even bother to look up. Yes. My tone was as flat as if I were asking a stranger about the weather. She ignored my indifference, rushed over, and shoved her phone in my face. On the screen was a blurry old photo and a summary of an investigation report. Look, the investigator found him, the person who saved me. It was you. It was really you. I glanced at it. The photo showed a rail-thin boy desperately dragging a little girl out of the water. It was me, and yet it wasn't. It was a long-buried memory, a good deed I had almost forgotten myself. Looking at her face, contorted with emotion, I found the situation incredibly ironic. So, I picked up the hammer and went back to work on a loose nail. The soft tapping sound was just loud enough to break her emotional trance. What are you trying to say? That because I saved you, it was perfectly fine for you to lock me in a dark room while I was burning with fever, crying for help. Stella's face went white. Her phone slipped from her hand and shattered on the ground, much like the broken relationship between us. I didn't know. I'm sorry, she stammered, tears streaming down her face. There's no need to apologize. I stood up and dusted off my hands. I don't need it, and please don't bother me again. I'm busy studying for my exams and have no time for your family's ridiculous soap opera. With that, I took a stunned Maya by the hand and went back inside, shutting the door on Stella and the truth she had discovered a decade too late. For a while after that, things were unusually quiet from the Harrisons. I was glad for the peace and poured all my energy into my studies and spending time with Chloe. Dr. Reed somehow managed to bring in a world-renowned cardiologist to consult on Chloe's case. The specialist said that while the surgery was high risk, it wasn't hopeless. This news was a ray of light for all of us. To afford the surgery and to build a future for us, I studied harder than ever. I thought that after my final rejection, the Harrisons would disappear from my life for good. I was wrong. A month later, as Chloe and I were leaving the library to head back to the orphanage, 3 black luxury cars blocked the school entrance. The doors opened, and Victoria, Hannah, and Stella, my 3 dear sisters, stood there, their faces etched with unspeakable guilt and pain. Ethan, Victoria, the one in front, said, her voice strained. Can we talk to you? I moved Chloe behind me and looked at them coldly. What is there left for us to talk about? There is. Hannah spoke up this time, clutching the repaired puppet so tightly her knuckles turned white. Ethan, we know everything. It turned out that after Stella had gone home, devastated, she told Victoria about her savior. Victoria's business acumen kicked in. She didn't believe any of Caleb's excuses and instead used all her resources to investigate everything from the beginning. She investigated the drowning incident, the necklace under my bed, the broken puppet, and even uncovered phone records between Caleb and some suspicious individuals right before the fire in my past life. The truth unraveled like an onion, each layer more stinging than the last, leaving them in tears. Caleb, the brother they had cherished for 17 years, was the architect of all the tragedies. He wasn't just a liar, he was a malicious demon. I'm sorry, Ethan, Victoria said, her eyes red. For the first time, the powerful businesswoman showed her vulnerable side to me. I was wrong. I shouldn't have accused you without knowing the truth and made you kneel in the rain all night. I'm a monster. Me too. Hannah stepped forward, holding out the puppet. Caleb broke this on purpose. He just wanted to see you suffer, and I yelled at you for it. Ethan, please hit me again. I'm begging you. Stella was sobbing uncontrollably. I'm the one who deserves to die. You saved my life, and I treated you like an enemy. The 3 of them stood before me, stripped of all their glamour, like 3 guilty children awaiting their sentence. I listened quietly, feeling nothing. This belated truth felt like a story about someone else. The Ethan who had yearned for understanding and love had already been reduced to ashes in the fire of my past life. Are you finished? I asked, my voice chillingly calm. They were all stunned, not expecting this reaction. If you're done, I'm leaving. I took Chloe's hand and started to walk away. Don't go. Victoria quickly blocked my path. Ethan, we've kicked Caleb out. From now on, you are the only heir to the Harrison family. Please come home with us. The company, the houses, everything will be yours, if you'll just forgive us. Forgive. I laughed, a bitter sound. Victoria, do you really think any of that matters now? When I was locked in the maid's room, choking on smoke, feeling the fire consume my skin inch by inch, where were you? You rushed into the fire to save the murderer who was still sleeping. At that moment, did it ever cross your minds that I was your brother too? My words were like daggers, piercing their hearts. Their faces turned deathly pale, and they swayed on their feet. It's too late, I said, each word clear and deliberate. From the moment I signed that severance agreement, you are you and I am me. I don't need you in my life anymore. I walked around them and didn't look back. I could hear their heart-wrenching cries behind me, but I didn't stop. Some wounds, once inflicted, can never be healed. A broken mirror, even when glued back together, is still covered in cracks. I heard about Caleb's fate from Dr. Reed. After being kicked out of the Harrison family, he hadn't given up and had tried to kidnap Chloe to threaten me. But he didn't know that Dr. Reed's unpredictable sister, Isabel, had already assigned people to protect us. Before Caleb could even get close to Chloe, Isabel's people caught him. They settled all his old and new debts at once. In the end, he was sentenced to life in prison for assault, attempted arson, kidnapping, and extortion. As for the three Harrison sisters, they seemed to be atoning in their own ways. Victoria announced she was unconditionally transferring 50% of the Harrison Group's shares to my name, which I publicly refused in front of the media and donated entirely to charity. Hannah put down her brushes and never painted again. Stella held one final concert and announced her permanent retirement from the music industry. They were using the rest of their lives to punish themselves, but it had nothing to do with me anymore. My life only truly began after I completely cut ties with them. I got into one of the best universities in the country, and Chloe, with her excellent grades, got into a neighboring one. With the help of the Reed family and our own efforts, her heart surgery was a complete success. Although she still needed a long recovery, she was no different from a normal person. During college, I partnered with Jenna from the ramen shop. Using my business sense and her culinary skills, we turned her small shop into a national restaurant chain. On graduation day, I proposed to Chloe. A few years later, our wedding was held on a sun-drenched lawn. There were no business tycoons, no flashing cameras, just the people closest to us. Maya, in a beautiful bridesmaid dress, cried harder than anyone but still handed me the ring with a smile. Dr. Reed and Jenna stood together, one elegant, the other sharp, both happy for us. The director of the orphanage and all the kids sat in the front row, their applause and cheers the most beautiful symphony I had ever heard. I watched Chloe walk towards me in her white wedding dress, her smile brighter than the sun. This girl was the only light I had held onto during my darkest times. "Chloe," I said, gazing into her eyes, my voice trembling with happiness. "Thank you for choosing me when I thought the whole world had abandoned me. Thank you for making me believe in love again, and for giving me a home." I gently kissed her lips and held her tight amidst the roaring applause. "From this day on, you are my wife, my love, and the only family in my life." The sun was warm, and the breeze was gentle. I finally understood that true family has nothing to do with blood. It's the unbreakable bond woven together through years of warmth and companionship. And I already had the best family in the world.